Republicans are more confident right now. Not everyone in every way, but this is a factor that Democrats have to deal with. And part of why they lack confidence is because they're all saying the same thing. They're all saying Trump is a tyrant, democracy is under attack, and the only answer to all this is to rise up. It's very emotional stuff. It's dramatic. It gets cheers on MSNBC. It gets cheers at rallies. But it's relying on the muscle memory of what gets applause, what gets you a podcast. It's not a strategy. And if you listen to the leading Democratic voices right now, they all sound very similar. Their tones might differ, but it's this relentless emphasis on norms are being violated, Trump is a tyrant, democracy is under threat. It's all a critique of Trump. It's not a forward-looking vision for what the Democratic Party will do for people if they take power. Here's, for instance, Barack Obama. S2, please.
Like many of you, I've become increasingly concerned about the rising wave of authoritarianism sweeping the globe. We're seeing politicians target civil society, undermine freedom of the press, weaponize the justice system. And no one is being spared. Even countries that thought they were immune from wholesale assaults on democracy now understand we're all part of this struggle. That's an enormous challenge.
Okay, so again, those are issues that he feels strongly about, the base feels strongly about, but you don't hear him saying anything about a forward-looking agenda. Here's another leading voice in the Democratic Party. We've talked about him here a lot, Gavin Newsom, governor of California. He too, very caught up in this thematics of the notion of Trump is a threat to the republic. Here's Gavin Newsom, S3.
And we're dealing with the tyranny of this administration every goddamn day. And so for me, it's about power, taking back our power. It's not about punditry and bullshit. It's not about having a goddamn candlelight visual. I'm not interested in a white paper on this shit. I'm a practitioner. We got to get out there. We got to fucking win. I care about winning. That's what Prop 50 is about. It's about power. This son of a bitch is going to not only rewrite history, it's over. The history of this country. We won't have a country in a year if this guy's successful.
Now, it's not like Obama and Newsom never talk about issues. They do. But the passion and the attention and the focus is on these issues related to, again, tyranny and process, norms being violated. And I'm not minimizing how strongly they feel about it, and I'm certainly not minimizing the reaction they get. Gavin Newsom's raised an enormous amount of money for this process measure on redistricting and added, many, many names to his email database. But it's not a forward-looking vision. Here's another one. Senator Murphy of Connecticut, Democrat, often talked about as a Democratic presidential candidate. I don't see it, but I need to look more into it. Here he is on MSNBC, same type of themes.
I mean, we are not on the verge of an authoritarian takeover. We're in the middle of it. Now, it's not too late. We haven't lost our democracy. But, we sometimes like to think of the first term Donald Trump, the bumbling White House that didn't seem to have any theory of the case from day to day. This is a very different White House, right? Stephen Miller and his gang, they have a plan. They have a plan that they are executing to transition our country from democracy to something fundamentally different, maybe even autocracy.
Okay, so again, I'm not saying the Democrats never talk about the economy, or even the three we just showed you. What I'm saying is the passion, the energy, the focus is all on these issues. And they're process issues that don't paint a brighter, broader future. Who is talking about issues? Well, Bernie Sanders, AOC, they are, for sure. They did a big CNN town hall, and, they'll talk about healthcare, et cetera. But they're on the far left. They're not painting a vision that's going to attract, the center, let alone any Republicans for the most part. And they're not debating within the party. They're talking about their specific agenda. So who are people who are exceptions here? Well, one is Congressman Ro Khanna, who's been on this program. He's a congressman from California, grew up in Pennsylvania. He's been doing tons of media and talking very specifically about critiquing his own party, standing up to the Democratic Party when he doesn't agree, and talking about issues. Now, here he is on a podcast with Benny Johnson. Benny is a very MAGA, very conservative podcaster. You wouldn't normally see Democrats going on his show, but this is the philosophy Ro Khanna has. Talk about issues, and talk about issues that can appeal not just to Democrats, but independents and Republicans. A couple sound bites from this. First, here he is doing something Democrats are typically afraid to do, not critiquing Donald Trump and everything horrible with Donald Trump, but critiquing the Democrats themselves. This is S5, please.
There's one critique I have of my party, and I'm going to ask you what your critique is of yours.
Uh-oh.
But one critique of mine is sometimes we came off too much scolding. That we come off as, you know, I think of the kids I grew up with who watched Rocky movies and went to Phillies games, and I was like, you know, I'm no better than them just because I have a fancy title as a congressman or I am Silicon Valley. Like, they have a lot to teach me, not just now, but when I was terrible at Little League, and they used to say, watch the bunt, right? And I think about them all the time, and how I'm still one of those kids who grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And I think our party sometimes comes off as can be preachy. Mm-hmm. You tell me, honest reflection, where do you think your party could do better?
Right, that's engagement and a critique of the party coming off as preachy. Yeah, I think a lot of Americans would agree that that's been a problem for the party for at least a little bit. But here's Ro Khanna also talking about the economy in a positive, thoughtful, creative way. This is S5B, please.
The single biggest issue in this country that 70% of Americans believe that the American dream no longer exists. Like,
that sucks.
Sad.
Yeah, that sucks.
And my parents, when they came here, right, put aside what people think partisan was, but John F. Kennedy was saying we were going to go to the moon. The country was on the march. Yeah. We were the place to be in the world. Yeah. And they never had a doubt that I or my brother would have a better life, that this was the greatest country in the world. I still believe that, but see, 70% of Americans lose that sense of chutzpah, that sense of building things, that we're the greatest nation, your kids are going to have a better life. That's what our political class should be talking about. That's what we should be trying to figure out a common ground.
Again, he's got specific ideas, too, about revitalizing the economy. But the rhetoric is not about running down Donald Trump. It's about a broad view of how the country got here, how we've made economic opportunities seem unobtainable for so many, and thinking about how to fix it. Now, here's another person who's talking in a positive way with ideas. And every time I talk about him on this show, some of you freak out. I'm not a socialist. I'm not endorsing Zohran Mamdani to be mayor of New York City, although he'll probably win. But what I am telling you is the guy has great political skills, and that extends to understanding how to speak to people about their concerns. And if you take his rhetoric and his ideas probably are going to be unrealistic to be implemented. They may not be smart ideas. But what he's doing is he's not just fighting with Donald Trump. He does that too. He's saying what's on people's minds. How do I afford transportation? How do I afford housing? How do I afford education? This is very similar to Donald Trump. And again, every time I say that here, some of you freak out. He's not Donald Trump. He doesn't share Donald Trump's agenda. But listen to him talking on Fox News Channel, again, just like Ro Khanna went on with Benny. Mamdani went on Fox with Martha McCallum, and listen to his positive vision. S6, please.
Time that we are not only proud of us being the financial capital, the cultural capital, but also we should make it a capital of where working people can afford to live in this city. Because right now what we're seeing is that 1 in 4 New Yorkers are being priced out of the wealthiest city and the wealthiest country in the history of the world.
You raised, how will you pay for these programs?
You know, I've said time and again that I believe these are the most straightforward ways that we can actually fund universal childcare, making buses fast and free. Mm-hmm. And I've said that the 2 clear ways to do so, raising personal income taxes on the top 1% by 2%, and raising the corporate tax to match that of New Jersey's corporate tax of 11.5%. Now, if there are other ways to raise this money to fund this agenda, the most important thing is that we fund the agenda. I still think that these are the most important and clear ways we can do it.
You won't find a guy or gal who's more anti-Trump in the Democratic Party than Mamdani. And yet he's not singularly focused on that as he's trying to appeal to voters. There's some people in the Democratic Party, I talk to them all the time, I did this week, who are like, well, it's all about Trump, and yes, Trump's a narcotic for us, but Trump will leave the stage and then it'll all be different. Well, maybe, but the future is now for the Democratic Party. They can't wait 3 years or maybe more, even if Trump's not going to run for president, but he'll be around. They can't assume that this is all about Trump, that the narcotic they've become addicted to Could be MAGA, where Trump's just the greatest symbol of that. Democrats have seen where this road leads. We saw last year, Kamala Harris defined her campaign by her opposition to Trump almost exclusively. She talked about ideas, but that was not the dominant rhetoric. She gave that big speech in Washington about norms and democracy. And then she lost both the Electoral College and the popular vote. And yet the party continues to go back to this. And Trump every day knows that, and he throws out things: immigration, deployment of U.S. forces in domestic, overseas provocative actions, the shutdown confrontation, firing government workers. It goes on. And the Democrats fall into it again and again. And so many Democrats I talk to now say, we need a balance. Yes, we need to harness the energy of anti-Trump, anti-MAGA. They don't want to give that up. But a lot of Democrats are saying we need to be talking about positive things too. We cannot just be the oppositional party. And until they rediscover the capacity that Bill Clinton had and Barack Obama had, until they rediscover that, it's going to be hard for them to grow up. Joe Biden won because of COVID and because of the unique circumstances of that election. But the other Democrats who've won since, go back to Lyndon Johnson, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, they talked about a positive vision for America based on ideas. They talked about bringing the country together, not a singular, very emotional criticism of the other side. Until Democrats figure out how to do that, they will be loud, they will be passionate, they will be able to march people in the streets, but they will also be directionless. They're a party that's fighting battles against primarily one man. They're not positioning themselves to lead the country. And every Democrat I talk to who knows about the way to win says we cannot be the opposition party that only opposes. We'll see what happens. We'll see if they figure it out. Now I'd like to tell you about the Vapor Technology Association. It's an organization started about a decade ago to protect the rights of Americans who choose alternatives to smoking and the small businesses who have made a living using this technology. They support science-based policies and the rights of adults to make healthier choices. Did you know that many family-owned vape shops and manufacturers across the country are under attack? That's thanks to outdated Biden-era regulations that threaten to wipe out an entire American industry. The Vapor Technology Association, also known as VTA, says businesses are being destroyed and people are losing their jobs. But the VTA says President Trump now has a clear opportunity to change this and to protect America's right to make their own choices and to defend small businesses and restore a free and fair marketplace. Head over to vaportechnology.org to learn more about the organization, what it does, and why they are leading the charge to support American innovation. If you're there and you read about it and their mission appeals to you, consider becoming a member on the website. Again, that's vaportechnology.org, and tell them when you're there you heard about them on Next Up.